All right, so if you just take a look at down here at the bottom, we have the idea. And that's really some of the fun parts. And I think that anybody that's in software business, that's one of the reasons why we got into the software business. Is it's kind of like construction or woodworking or things like that, that you see something tangible in the fruit of your labor immediately whenever you have the idea. So the idea maybe get put on a napkin at a bar. It may end up being at a Bible study or whatever. The idea comes to life, and then from that, then we get into usually developing a prototype. So right here might be developing a prototype. So if you're familiar with writing code, or getting maybe a Raspberry Pi out or something like that, gives you a very easy way to lickety-split get a prototype from that idea, because there's a lot of tools out there that can put you in a position to have that prototype. It might be hard-coded, but have that prototype very, very quickly. Once you have the prototype, then usually we start to seek out a little bit of money. Maybe we'll demo it to people and say, hey, hook me up with a little bit of funding. I can take it to the next level. Maybe a venture capitalist or private equity firm, or even a customer, government customer, right? Maybe you get them to write a small business innovative research, SIBR, or maybe got some leftover money for the rest of the year. We can develop a product for you. Sure, no problem. From that, then usually we'll get into what's called a preliminary design review, a PDR. So from the preliminary design review, that's where you try to take that hard-coded prototype and start to develop requirements for that. Take it down the next level. Maybe get into some decomposed requirements or sub requirements, some derivatives. But usually you're not supposed to code at all until you reach what's called a critical design review. A critical design review. So the critical design review comes after you've done the planning and some research, usually some sort of requirements, yep. And you have the requirements traceability matrix, where now you have a way that you can refine your process and hopefully get to a point where you can go back to the customer and say, is this what you're looking for? And make sure that you have a meeting of the minds. From that, usually what I'll do for my customers, and this may be different than your approach, is I'll have a Pinto, a Mustang, and a Cadillac. Those are the different approaches that I'll take. So you can have the option one, which is the, hey, we can get it to you real quick for a little bit of money. Yeah, the different tiers. The Mustang is a good, solid product, right? And then the Cadillac, hey, we're going to put that bling bling on there for you. We're going to make it look real smooth. It's going to be super fast, and not many. Usually people will say, hey, give me a little bit of, I'll take the Mustang, right? There was one feature inside the Pinto that I liked, but you know what? I liked one inside the Cadillac. And then usually from that having that meeting of the minds, what we'll do is we'll have what's called a Delta CDR. So you'll go back and you say, hey, here's the changes that I had, and based off of that, now we get approved to the next gate here. And after you've been approved, right here is where we begin to finally start to code. And a lot of times what we see is that development teams won't wait that long to start to code, and they'll just start to go hog wild and build something that may not be what the customer is even asking for, and they'll have to go back to the drawing board. We see it all the time. So after the CDR has been approved, we can march towards what's called the Test Readiness Review, or TRR. And then from the TRR, we have somebody non-interested that comes in and actually tests the software based off of the requirements that we have. Usually, at least over on the Army side of the house, it would be a formal qualification test, like an FQT, that you would have to go through to check out the process. So you march towards the FQT, you hopefully get approval from the FQT, and then finally we do the gut check at ORR, Operational Readiness Review. And based off of that ORR, we go around to everybody who's been involved in the project to say, hey, we're ready for production. We got the help desk on board. We got the testing team on board. We got the development team on board. We're sent out notifications. We're ready to go, push this thing into production. And then after it's in production, then it becomes into an iterative, cyclic approach that is usually referred to as an O&M phase, an operation and maintenance phase. So as you go through and rule the world with everything that is in the CISSP, essentially what I've just done right here in the last 6 minutes and 12 seconds is told you specifically the 10 miles wide and an inch deep life cycle that is what we're looking for. Usually what we see here, I deliberately did it because we see security is an afterthought, right? Nowhere in here did I say anything about security. So usually what we see is that, especially with the risk management framework, it's at least the spirit of it, we may bash it all we want, the spirit of it is to try to have people be certified in information security and push it to the left of the life cycle. Because if we can, as engineers, we can go in and actually practice security instead of it being an afterthought, then we can bake it into the product as we go along and hopefully answer some of those hard questions prior to the end of the project. Studies have shown that it costs 10 times more to bolt on a solution at the end of the product than it would be to try to bake it in to the product during the life cycle.